Imagine walking alone down the street, hearing your own footsteps, your thoughts freely appearing and fading away. You belong entirely to yourself, and no one but you controls the direction of your inner dialogue. But then you step into a noisy square, where hundreds of voices merge into a single hum. People move like a living creature with its own heart and rhythm, and in that moment, something inside you begins to change subtly. You feel your step, once free and independent, adjusting to the common pace. Your gaze slides to where others are looking, and emotions you barely have time to call your own start to seep into you. In this instant, rarely noticed but always felt, you stop being yourself in the usual sense. You cease to be a separate person and become part of something greater, yet more faceless. The crowd, like a vast and ancient being, breathes through you, thinks for you, and feels instead of you. You may resist for a moment, but resistance feels strange as the collective wave sweeps you away completely, promising safety and merging. A crowd is not just a collection of people gathered in one place. It is a special state composed of human bodies, voices, and emotions, where each individual ceases to be an autonomous system and becomes a cell in a vast, living, and shifting organism with its own will, goals, and logic of existence. It breathes, though it has no lungs. It thinks, though it has no brain, and it moves. In this merging, you stop feeling your own boundaries. Where once you ended and the world began, there arises a zone where you can no longer distinguish your own feelings from those of others. An emotion born in one heart passes like lightning through dozens of others, turning into a shared electric charge, making it impossible to tell what came first, your inner state or the collective mood imposed on you. The crowd absorbs everything, your doubts, fears, hopes, but returns them to you transformed, no longer yours but its own. Sometimes it feels like a strange intoxication, when everything you do seems natural, right, and necessary simply because others are doing it. Merging with the crowd sharpens your feelings but dulls your thoughts. It enhances your ability to act, but weakens your ability to choose the direction of your actions. And this is the crowd's great mystery. It can turn the weak into the brave, the silent into the shouting, the peaceful into the aggressive, all without visible violence, only through invisible pressure that we feel but rarely can explain. The crowd is an ancient instinct, as if deep in our genetic memory lies the knowledge that millions of years ago, survival was only possible in a pack, where an individual life was just part of the whole. Today we call this psychology, sociology, or group dynamics, but essentially, we still carry this ancient code within us that draws us to the crowd, even when it leads us away from ourselves. When you find yourself inside a crowd, you start playing by rules that no one has spoken aloud, yet somehow everyone knows them. These rules don't operate on the level of logic. They touch the deep layers of the psyche that we rarely become aware of. This is precisely where the explanation lies for why the individual dissolves so quickly into the mass of people. The first mechanism is anonymity. In a crowd, you cease to be someone specific. You have a face, but it loses individuality. This feeling of invisibility is enticing. You can do things you would never dare to do alone because the gaze that would judge you is blurred in the masses, and responsibility feels shared among others. The second mechanism is diffusion of responsibility. What we call we often becomes an excuse for what I did. Inside the crowd, the inner judge that usually whispers, "Stop," disappears. Instead, the justification sounds, "Everyone is doing it." And this simple but dangerous thought lifts the burden of choice, and along with it, the weight of guilt. The third mechanism is emotional contagion. Emotions spread within the crowd faster than words. One shout can run through 100 bodies like an electric impulse, triggering action even before the mind can intervene. Gustave Le Bon, who studied crowd psychology, wrote that an individual in a crowd can be infected by an idea or feeling just like an organism is infected by a virus, without the ability to defend against the invasion. The fourth is imitation. Our brain is wired so that mirror neurons reflect the behavior of those around us. In a crowd, this effect intensifies many times over. We don't just imitate, we become an extension of someone else's movement. You see someone nearby applauding, and your hands start moving on their own. You hear others shouting, and your throat tightens, ready to shout back. And finally, the hidden and most dangerous mechanism, reduced critical thinking. In the noise and common rhythm, the mind has less room for doubt and analysis. The crowd does not tolerate pauses. Everything happens quickly, and any delay is perceived as falling out of sync with the group. So we obey more often than we ask ourselves, why am I doing this? Together, these mechanisms form an invisible web that we enter not by force, but by our own consent, driven by ancient instincts. And the longer you stay in the crowd, the more this web feels not like something external, but a part of yourself. A crowd is an energy that can be both light and fire, capable of burning everything around it. History shows examples where masses of people rose to great feats, and others where they turned into a destructive flood, sweeping away all life in their path. Both arise from the same source, the merging of many individuals into one unified force. We have seen how crowds become a source of inspiration. Thousands gathered in a square to listen to a leader's speech, believing together they could change the world. They felt the warmth of a neighbor's shoulder, the power of something shared, and this gave them a determination they would never find alone. Revolutions were born this way. Old orders were destroyed, and new nations created. At such moments, the crowd symbolized hope, and its energy fueled the future. But that same energy, when unopposed, could turn into a fiery storm. Crowds consumed by rage destroyed cities and burned homes. One word, one spark, and the collective impulse became uncontrollable, unable to distinguish friend from foe. In such cases, the crowd ceased to be a gathering of people and transformed into a pure force of destruction, for which neither morality nor compassion exists. Even in modern reality, we see how crowds can change the world, in both literal and symbolic senses. Sports stadiums, where tens of thousands of people share one emotion, create an atmosphere capable of lifting a team to victory or plunging it into despair. Massive concerts, where music unites people into a single rhythm, provide a feeling of belonging to something greater. But there are also digital crowds, millions of users united by a single idea on social media, capable of raising a topic to a global scandal within hours, or destroying the reputation of someone no one had heard of yesterday. A crowd can heal and destroy, protect the weak and trample them, create miracles and commit crimes. It is always stronger than an individual, but this power is blind, and so it needs someone to direct it, or circumstances that determine its path. History shows that once inside a crowd, we risk not only gaining strength we never had, but also losing the part of ourselves that makes us human. The main danger lies in the crowd creating an illusion of correctness. When hundreds or thousands of people do the same thing, your mind stops doubting. You begin to believe it's right simply because everyone else is doing it. The inner voice that can be persistent when you're alone becomes a whisper in the crowd, easily drowned out. And the longer you stay in this collective noise, the quieter it gets, until it disappears completely. Another danger is the readiness to commit an act that would seem monstrous to you in everyday life. The crowd removes moral brakes from a person. If everyone is shouting, you shout too. If everyone is destroying, you destroy as well. If everyone drives someone away, you follow along, even if you don't know why. No orders are needed here, just a common impulse for your hands to act without your mind's involvement. The crowd is also dangerous because of its unpredictability. It can be quiet and peaceful one moment, and the next transform into an uncontrollable torrent. Then, even if you wanted to stay on the sidelines, you get pulled into the movement like a vortex with no escape. In such moments, you stop being an observer and become part of actions that can lead to tragic consequences. But perhaps the deepest and most frightening danger is the loss of the very sense of individuality. When you spend a long time in a crowd, you start to feel that being part of something bigger is more natural than being yourself. You begin to fear loneliness, and then the crowd becomes a need, and you seek it yourself, craving to dissolve into it once again. Understanding the dangers is only the first step. True freedom comes when you learn to remain yourself, even as a storm of voices, emotions, and impulses rages around you. So how do you avoid losing yourself inside this powerful force? First, mindfulness. To be aware that you are not just part of the crowd, but an individual with your own mind and feelings. This means resisting the first impulse, pausing and asking yourself, what do I really want? What do I feel? What is right for me? Even simply noting to yourself, I am in a crowd right now, creates the necessary distance to maintain your inner center. Second, resistance to pressure. Sometimes this is just a silent decision not to give in to provocations, not to participate in actions that go against your beliefs. It doesn't mean being a hero or doing something extraordinary. Sometimes it's enough just not to go with the flow, to stand still and observe. Third, awareness of responsibility. Understand that your actions are your own deeds, not something you can blame on the crowd. It's easy to hide inside the mass, but once you step out, you answer for what you have done. This awareness restores your sense of control and helps you make conscious decisions. And finally, the most important, work on yourself outside the crowd. The deeper and stronger your personality, the clearer your values and principles, the harder it is to lead you astray. Engage in self-development, explore yourself, develop critical thinking, and learn to listen to your inner I. Practicing mindful presence in the crowd is an effective way to strengthen your individuality. Attend concerts, mass events, stadiums, places where people unite in a single emotional flow. In moments when everyone around is shouting and watching the stage or field, try consciously to disconnect from the collective. Look around, behind you, up, observe the behavior of others, and remind yourself that it is you who consciously chooses your behavior, different from that of the crowd. This exercise helps build an internal barrier between you and the faceless mass. Preserve your inner voice, and constantly remember your autonomy. In a world where it's so easy to become part of the crowd, the ability to switch on and switch off at the right moment is a rare gift you can cultivate within yourself.